Hello, welcome to Popcast on the Rocks for February 22nd, 2020. How's it going, Andrea? Hello,
Pretty good.
welcome to
How about
Popcast
yourself?
on the Rocks for
Good.
February
Not bad.
22nd, 2020. How's it
I have
going,
to
Andrea?
mute.
To stream here because that was confusing. Um, Trying a new the Streamlabs OBS. Like I said, because
Okay.
Ninja uses it, so it's got to be the best, probably, right? So,
I think so. Like I said
so
earlier, I like anything with ninja in the title,
yeah.
so.
So hopefully it goes well. Um,
Yeah,
and
well, our producer's not here this week, so, of
yep,
course we're breaking all the rules, trying all the new stuff without him, so he
yep,
can get back and admonish us next week if it doesn't go well.
yep. This episode will be all choppy, and we'll lose a stream. And episode 6 will go down lost after
Right, in
time.
a fiery crash. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, yeah, if it does, we'll have to have learned our lesson, I guess.
So how's your week been? You were saying earlier. I mean, you look healthier today.
Thank you. That's so very polite of you. You look healthier today, other than the death pile you looked like the other day. Yes. Um, yes, I was sick mid this week and just slept a bunch of days to get over that. Um, okay, funny, funny sort of like half observation, I guess. So I was out sick on Wednesday. I left work, and just like texted my boss that I was too sick. I just had to go home and rest.
Yep.
Um, and then came back to work on Thursday and found out that three of my coworkers were gone sick for the day.
Okay.
So they apparently also got whatever I had. And I felt sorry. Like I was sorry that they were sick, but I was also like weirdly happy because it was very validating, that like I could
Yeah.
point out to my boss, like, see, I was really sick. Like, look at all these other people that now had to go home too. Like, it
I
wasn't,
can
I just didn't,
understand
it
that.
wasn't that I just didn't want to work.
Hmm.
It was that I was truly sick. So
I used to get
yeah, I
anxiety.
felt a little bad, but
I used to get almost
what?
anxiety over that as a kid, where I would
Yes,
wake up sick and I'm like, I don't feel well, but it's like I probably could go. So it's like, but
right?
I don't want to. I don't want it to come off like I'm pretending to be sick here because I am sick. But
Exactly.
I don't know. One of those
Yeah, no,
stupid.
exactly. I feel like that is translated right into being an adult.
Yeah,
Like,
you were sick. You should go
I was
home.
like,
So that's it. It's like,
right,
yeah.
right. But I felt like all nervous about it and I felt
Hmm.
like weird. And I was like, oh, I should have just stuck it out. I was already at work. I could have finished out the day. But like, really, I couldn't because I came home and just like passed out for like 7 hours and did not wake up until my husband came home and was like, hi, hi, dead person.
Yeah.
Um, but clearly I needed it, but it was also like very validating to have my coworkers be that sick
Yep.
that they all were out the next day. So
Or we can translate this a different way. Haha, my coworkers are sick. That doesn't sound as
that's
funny.
right. I know. I know. I prefer my way
Yeah.
because I felt bad. I felt bad that they were sick, but I was also very relieved that they were sick. So,
Yep. Well, glad you're feeling a little better
how about
now.
you? Thank you. How about you? How's this week been?
Good. Yeah, we're Ashley's been doing a lot of painting, so we got things kind of all over
Oh,
the place, getting stuff painted.
like house
Our
painting or like fun
Yeah,
painting?
no, our like foyer in the big open area that's never been
Uh-huh.
painted this whole time. It's always just
Oh,
been
yeah.
primed.
Okay.
So we had all the other rooms
Sure.
painted and stuff, and it looks fine, but with the primer it scuffs easily and stuff. So
Yeah, for
finally got
sure.
paint and been working on that.
What
So
what color are you going with?
we've got 3 colors. So
Okay.
it's kind of a green sort of palette. So the green is
Mm-hmm.
called Thai curry, I think, and then there
Okay.
is a kind of somewhere between. It brings in some more brown notes. That one is, and it's lighter. That is, I don't remember what it's called. Champagne something maybe. And then there's
Okay.
a rice wine is the lighter, closer to white.
Ooh,
So
okay. Okay.
fun colors.
I love paint names. They're just like the weirdest things.
Mm-hmm.
Like sometimes they can be like very apt and vivid and they conjure very like correct, notions
Yeah.
of what the color is. And then sometimes you're like, Thai curry. Like, I mean, I sort of, but I'm not quite getting the gist.
Yep.
You
There
know,
was
I'd
one.
have to see it.
It was like, I don't know if it was called. I remember it was a political figure. I don't know if it was like Barack Obama or something, something like that. And then I don't remember what the color was. And then there was an anime color. It's just called anime. So
Weird.
neither of the
Like-
things seemed to, like you say, conjure in your mind what this would be. Really, so it's
No,
they're getting desperate. They're
Yeah,
getting
I think
desperate.
so. They're trying to be like too clever and strange and
Yep.
unique. Like I don't need a color of a people. You know what I mean? Like I don't know what a person color is. Also, I would feel weird having that on my walls, like some sort of creepy serial killer.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you want to know what's on my walls? Barack Obama.
Yeah.
Like, no, I don't think so.
Like a painting? No.
No, it's him. He's my
Um,
trophy now.
Yeah. So I haven't seen you
Oh,
take
boy.
a drink of anything.
Well, I think.
Oh, sorry.
Oh yes, yes. I was just gonna say, I think we have the maybe the episode title for this week. Barack Obama's on my walls. No,
Yeah.
as a trophy.
I'll end up asking Ashley, and
Um,
it'll be a completely different person. It was someone from the DNC, I thought, but
Okay, okay. No matter who it is, I don't know that I can conjure a color to match.
yeah.
So might as well be Barack.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I do have a drink here. I'm going with a classic again, a little whiskey, but this week I am drinking my favorite whiskey of all time, Crown Royal.
Oh.
And I felt that was very apt for something that we're going to talk about later.
Oh, okay.
The show that we both watched this week, right?
Right, yeah.
Right?
Hmm.
I'm going with the theme here.
Okay. Yep.
So, what have you got?
Well, I
That's
went with
you.
something relevant too, not to the show really, but yesterday, I
Hmm.
guess, was National Margarita Day.
It was, yes. So, you got a margarita going there?
It has a lemon in it. I don't have any limes. So it's my own twist on margarita, but it's good.
A lemon twist.
Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe that's already a
Nice.
drink. Maybe a margarita, but with lemon instead of lime is a drink.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, coming from my limited bartender
Yeah.
experience, I don't think so.
Okay.
So,
There it is.
so
That's
yeah,
it.
look at you innovating.
Yeah, I know. I don't have triple sec or Contru either, so I just had to make my own simple syrup, and I put in orange bitters to have a little bit of
Oh.
orangeness for that.
Okay, so you got like a citrus margarita going on.
Yep. Hmm.
Nice, nice. I'll have to come try it next week since we'll be in the same place.
Yeah, well, maybe there'll be another National Drink Day next week. I don't know.
Yes, actually that would be hilarious because the week before was National Wine Day.
Oh.
Like so not
So
this
we
last
should
week,
keep
but the week
tabs on
before.
these things.
So yeah, we clearly should. We need to match our drinks to these
Yeah.
holidays.
Well, and
So.
maybe I'll make you a. So I have a glass I got at the Alamo Roadhouse or the theater.
Oh yeah, okay.
That it has Aquaman on it. So it's just a Collins glass with Aquaman. And so our friend Tara said you should make a Jason mimosa in that.
Oh my god, that's funny.
So, Definitely.
That's pretty great.
Yeah. Yeah. Should do
Yes,
that.
we will definitely do that. Well, we should see if there's a National Mimosa Day and try to
Yeah.
plan around that.
Yep. Got to film during brunch then.
Yes, yes. Special brunch episode.
Yeah. Well, this week started kind of slow with news, but I don't know. We
did,
ended up
yeah.
getting a few things in here. Oh, and I see one thing you put in there. I didn't check it out yet, so you'll have to fill me in. But
Okay. Is it the Westworld trailer?
yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
I used to go.
I'll
and
fill you in
jump-
as best I can. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it's confusing.
Okay. Okay. I mean, should they be doing Westworld season 3? If you mean
Hell yeah.
okay. So you
Hell
enjoyed
yeah.
the first
Absolutely.
two?
Like oh yeah, no, I'm totally excited about it. It's confusing in a sense of like it's introducing a lot of new stuff very quickly and sort of doing that thing like in media race where like it just throws you in the middle of it and
Mm,
assumes like you're going to catch yourself
yeah.
up and then sort of like backpedals. So it's a little tricky. And then it is tough because it's been so long since season two
Yep.
that it's really tough to be like, okay, like I'm sort of remembering as the trailer goes on what happened, but you know,
Mm-hmm.
like it's hard to like drag that all back.
Yep.
So
Yep. I'm sure they'll do a recap beforehand that'll work out pretty
yeah,
well and stuff.
yeah,
It's no
it'll
sentiment
definitely be needed.
towards season two. I enjoyed it. I had my some issues, but I enjoyed it. So
Hmm.
I'm excited. It's one of my favorite shows. Um,
Yeah, same.
but I'm worried because I mean I suppose it's what's needed. It needs to be different, not
Hmm.
more the same. But I'm worried about that too. You know,
Yes,
do we need
yes,
to
I
put up a
agree.
spoiler warning? I build a spoiler thing now. I because about the
um,
I'll
about the trailer.
no I'll just
Yeah, maybe throw it up. Just be cautious.
yeah we're gonna test it out the spoiler
All right.
the sign if nothing else.
Okay.
So just that in the end of season one and season two took place in the parks, and that was
Hmm.
awesome and cool. And then now it seems like season three, without me having seen this new trailer, seems like it's going to
Yes.
be in the rest of the world, which is exciting in the real world to see what
Hmm.
has, what's led to this, what the world's like now. But it also could lose
Hmm.
a lot of what made it cool to begin with.
Yes. So I think there's several different issues that the show will potentially face by moving it out into like the real world, quote unquote. I mean, we don't know if it's actually the real world, although fair guess. Um, I think the scale could get very out of control. And if it's not done well, like I feel like that sort of like moving out of the contained world of the park
Mm-hmm.
could go well, but it could also go very terribly.
Yep.
Um, so that'll be something to watch, I think. I think another issue that they're going to face is the sense of total innovation that you felt at the park.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a totally new world that they're creating, and it's this like crazy brainchild. And what compares in the real world? The real world is just real, you
Mm-hmm.
know. Um, so it's not different in that sense where like you had this like cool concept of the park that you could focus on, and now it's just real stuff.
Well,
So that could be an issue.
and it's also it it is it's risky. Then they could easily tread on really familiar territory
Exactly.
with other things like there's machines that basically are indistinguishable from people, and do they have rights and stuff like that. And I think that's still interesting, but it's not that it hasn't been
Hmm.
done before, so it would lose
Right.
its mystique. It's I mean anytime you offer answers you lose a lot of that intrigue. And I
Exactly.
also agree with the thing of scale. It's like when you do a zombie movie or something, and it's in a person's home, and it's about you trying to survive. That's really harrowing,
Hmm.
and it makes it, all those questions that spin in your head, like how did this happen? How did this go down? That's often more interesting and easier to do than the like
Hmm.
World War Z film, which I love still, but where it's harder to put on a grand scale how this all
Yes.
happened to showcase that,
Yes.
and it's challenging.
Well, and you lose connection with characters,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately, or you can. That is a
Mm-hmm.
danger, I should say. Not that this will automatically happen, but it could,
Yep.
because you're so focused on the world itself and introducing the world that sometimes you sort of lose the sort of intimate moments, which I think are particularly the most interesting when they deal with the robotic characters, because it is that minutia, that sort of like, do they have these human emotions, and how do things affect them, and how do they process things? Is it the same as a real person?
Mm-hmm.
That to me is one of the most interesting questions, and you could sort of lose that very quickly.
Yep. Yep.
So
Well,
we'll see. I mean,
yeah.
trailer looks. I mean, it looks fabulously produced.
Okay.
And it looks like um they've put a lot of time and attention into details, but it's also 2 minutes of
Yeah.
how many hours of footage, so
Yep.
who knows.
Yep.
I'm heartened by the fact that it has taken so long, even though I hate the long wait time. You
Yep.
you want them to take their time. I felt like everybody gave the same sort of grace to Game of Thrones when it took that huge break, because everybody was like, "Oh yeah, we want it to go right, take your time." And then unfortunately it friggin' sucked.
Yeah.
But everybody at first was very
Yeah.
forgiving of them
Oh,
taking a
don't
long time
worry,
because
we'll
they
stick
wanted
with
them
you. Yeah.
to get it
Oh,
right.
man.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
hopefully this is a success story
yeah.
instead of Game of Thrones.
Yep. Well, we'll definitely have to talk more about Game of Thrones sometime, and definitely more about. Be fun to talk more about Westworld as well. But I'm
Yes,
gonna remove the
absolutely.
spoiler warning now here, and
Yeah, I think so. I think we're safe.
talk about some other news,
Mm-hmm.
some movie news.
Yeah.
So I played Sonic the Hedgehog very young, so it's interesting to see a movie
Absolutely.
coming out, and it seems to be doing well.
Yeah.
I'm kind of happy about
Yeah,
it.
smashing that box office.
Oh, I froze. I'll be right back.
You froze very pensively,
Oh,
at
that's
least.
good. That's what's important.
That's
Okay.
right. Pick your pose.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sonic.
Yeah. So 57 million domestic in
Mhm.
the first weekend.
I think it's more than doubling its next highest competitor at the box office, isn't it?
Oh, wow. Nice. Okay. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's great.
At least it was when I last
Sure.
looked. So
I mean, I haven't seen it. I've heard that it's a great family movie, great for kids,
Yep.
and they love it and stuff, and that it's kind of a love letter to Sonic fans. So even if you're maybe older than the intended audience, if you're a fan of Sonic, you'll like it. So
right,
it'd be interesting
right.
seeing it sometime.
Yeah, I think it's pretty good nostalgia, for kids of the 90s who grew up playing Sonic.
Yep.
So I do want to. I think this is sort of like a thing that I kind of want to talk about a little bit this week, especially when it comes to movies. So for Sonic the Hedgehog, I personally didn't weigh in on this, but I remember the first releasing of trailers and bits of the movie had fans in an uproar.
Yep.
Over the CGI and the creation of Sonic.
Yep.
So that they had to go back and redo the entire character and reshoot basically the entire movie.
Right.
Or at least what they had so far, which I thought was pretty substantial.
Reanimate.
Yeah, reanimate. But I mean, you have to reshoot those scenes with animation. You know what I mean?
Well,
I guess yeah.
I mean, I would say the footage.
Semantics.
Yeah, the footage should have been able to stay. They just have to literally redraw everything. So I'm sure it was a lot of overtime for whoever.
Right.
So hopefully
whoever had to suffer through that.
Yeah, hopefully they recoup their costs, in having to
right.
do that.
Right. Do you think that sort of like fan outcry is now justified by how well Sonic is doing?
Well,
that's my question, because sometimes it's really hard, like, how much input should fans have in this sort of thing? Like, is this because this is a success story now? Is this justified that fans were so outraged that the studio bowed and redid it?
There's a quote: "Never bend the knee to the rage mob ever." And I agree with that wholeheartedly. But if you're making something for people, it's really just on you, who your audience is, and if you're going to please that audience or not. That's kind of, and I know it's hard to tell sometimes. So it must have been loud enough, and they thought it legitimate enough.
Sure.
I wouldn't be surprised if there was conflict within the studio when it was being made. People being like,
Mm,
that does not look like Sonic. That's the wrong path. And then
sure.
you had other execs being, no, we need it more lifelike. We're not going to do the same thing or whatever. And so it's already that. And then there's an outpouring online that like that is creepy as hell. Please
Yeah.
don't do that.
Because it was.
And then the
It was
memes,
definitely
it became
creepy as
memes
hell.
everywhere. Yeah. So
Yes.
I mean, it's you just have to make that judgment call. You know, Twitter is an echo chamber, and it's like 7% of the United States population. Most people did not weigh in on this issue, so it really has to
Yeah.
be that call of the studio. Like, are there enough good intentioned people that we're trying to sell this movie to that are not gonna go
Sure.
see it, or is it a bunch of trolls? Like it's gonna have to be on them and their marketing research teams, I guess.
Sure. And I do think it's a little different in this case. Obviously there have been other, fan outcries to the way that movies have been written or ended, or, the
Hmm.
way a story has gone. And I think that's a bit different than, just like fan outcry saying like, hey, this character looks super creepy. You have to redo it. We don't, you know what I mean? Like they weren't outcrying about the story. It wasn't necessarily like the movie that was being made. It was literally the character.
Hmm.
But still it's if not the exact same situation, it's similar. So I was just curious
Yeah,
about your take on that.
I mean, I think if I like when if you're an artiste and you have a vision, you're a creative
Uh-huh.
person, you're a creator, and you have a vision. I like that if those people can get their vision to paper, to screen, to
Mhm.
whatever. That's nice, and that's important. Um, but you need to balance that with like, well, do you know, who, like you say, who is your audience? Who are you trying to
Mhm.
please? And like, do you just want to have this thing out there that may or may not do well, but it's what you envisioned? Or do you want to have
Mhm.
something that you can be happy with and is successful? So, and
Mhm.
I think anytime you're not independent, which is almost never in film, you're gonna
Right.
have to answer to we need people to like this too. So,
Right. Right.
and no matter
Yeah,
what we say, the rage mob will continue. The outcry will continue.
true.
So,
True. Yes. Yeah, if it's not Sonic, they'll have moved on to something else.
yep.
Um,
Hmm.
but it certainly seems that, the studio now made the right call given
Hmm.
its success, obviously.
Yeah.
So it luckily worked out for them
Yeah.
because who knows what the box office would have looked like.
Yeah. I mean, people could say how great it is, and I wouldn't be interested with the other character because it looked like a person wearing a Sonic suit.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously, studios have now seen the dangers, I think, of making those sort of things too human and realistic that people hate. Because not only was there outcry for Sonic the Hedgehog, but cats. Like, people friggin' hated that they look so humanoid. It is creepy
Yep.
as hell.
Yep.
So, and obviously cats took like a total dump at the office. So, or the box office.
Think
So,
of
I
that.
mean, it's,
Yeah. Think of that wasted money all on that cast.
yes.
That's a big
Yes.
cast of high
Yes.
profile names.
Yeah, it is a lot of money between what they had to do with CGI and hiring that cast. Dame Judi Dench don't work for free.
And
Like,
why did all those people sign up for this? I mean, I would
I
be
know,
desperate to
I
have someone
know.
ask me to be in this movie and say yes.
Oh,
Like if I was
God.
getting my
I mean,
start in Hollywood.
yes. Yes, I don't even know the main character. I know she's relatively unknown. So I get her, and I hate to be super mean, but I get somebody like maybe Rebel Wilson getting in there.
Okay.
Um
Sure.
but Judi Dench, Ian McKellen,
Yeah, I know.
Idris Elba,
I know.
Taylor Swift, for goodness sake.
What
I
do
mean,
they
I know
have
she's
on
not
these
an
people?
actress, but like,
What do they
yeah,
have on them?
dang.
They're like,
Didn't it seem like a total just like, okay, we're just gonna blackmail all these people into joining this
Yeah.
cast?
were
Like,
they in
I
Scientology? I
do
didn't know
not
about
know.
it, and they have all their confessions.
Right.
And, yeah, I don't know.
Right. Yeah, no,
Well,
that whole movie is a total head scratcher to me. I mean, casting, CGI, everything. But
yep.
I do hear that it's a trend now to go watch that movie uh while you're rolling.
Okay. Okay.
To just like totally high. Some people have had some like really great experiences where they just like find the movie just like hilariously fantastic and wonderful.
Yep.
And then some people have had some like truly like freak out moments, like
The
like,
nightmares now.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Hmm.
So it's a gamble, but if you want to join some internet trends, there's one for you.
Okay. Okay. Well, movies that the principal cast won't give you nightmares is probably Birds of Prey.
Very true. Very
I can't
true.
think of being too terrified. But that's in the theater. Been a couple weeks now, few weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and that is way underperforming, is what it looks
Yes.
like.
Yes.
But I've
Which is
heard,
unfortunate.
yeah. I mean, I was really skeptical. I still haven't seen it. I'd like to see it
Mm-hmm.
sometime. I was really skeptical going in because it's another one of those things where if you're gonna make a movie and you're gonna call it Birds of Prey, it should maybe be Birds of Prey. And it is so very. It's like it's Harley Quinn. It's a Harley Quinn movie with
Right.
starring some other characters that vaguely represent what they're portraying. What they're based upon.
Yes.
So I get
Yes.
again, and I can be okay with things that are their own thing. They're
Mm-hmm.
like it's a movie, it's not the comic, all this stuff, whatever. But it always seems like a money grab to be like, well, here's this title, this property, we're gonna have a bunch of nerds that know about, and they're gonna go see it.
Mm-hmm.
But then we don't really care about making it that thing at all. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think this movie I hate to say it, but I feel like this movie is a little bit like Suicide Squad in that it's too soon. It's a lot of different characters that the general public, and maybe not we, but the general public hasn't been introduced to, doesn't really know that well. And they're just not like that invested
mm-hmm.
in this sort of like ensemble movie because they're like, I mean, yeah, sure, I know Harley Quinn, but saw her in Suicide Squad and that's it. Like,
Yep.
for all intents and purposes, Marvel has set up a formula for this sort of comic superhero action type of movie, this whole genre.
Yep.
Um, that is like we do the slow build so you follow along so that by the time we get to an ensemble, you at least know the names and have
Yep.
seen like a blip or two of somebody in something. So it's really
Yep.
tough for people, I think, to just like jump in, especially since these aren't like just like easily recalled characters.
Yep.
Like at least Justice League was like, yeah, at least I know the names of like Batman and
They're in mainstream pop
Superman
culture.
and
Yeah.
Aquaman. Right, exactly. Like I at least know who these people are, even if I like don't know, this version that DC is creating
Yep.
right now. Like I maybe haven't been introduced to them, but I know what the character is and I might know some general stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is really hard.
That's
This is really
why
tough to push.
that's why it's important that Marvel's in a different situation because people see the name
Hmm.
Marvel behind it and they'll go see it. Enough people will go see it, whether
Now,
it's good
now
or
they will.
not, whether it's real, true
Mhm.
to the source. They've earned the reputation that people will go see it. DC hasn't
Yes.
done that. It's been all over the board.
No.
So what they could have done with where they had things was if Suicide Squad is your series, your ongoing thing, this would be your Harley Quinn spinoff. So this is kind of a
Yes.
1.5, but it's delving a little more into where Harley Quinn is going since you get a little more of her psyche, and you could introduce a couple different characters to come along for the ride.
Yes.
And I think
Agreed.
selling it that way would be a lot easier. Then you have a Suicide Squad 2 that would be,
Mhm.
picking up. Harley Quinn would be involved in that, of course, too, as she is. And then you could do a Birds of Prey movie, and that would be Birds of Prey having to deal with the Suicide Squad. People forget the Suicide Squad they're not good people. They're bad guys.
Right.
Like they might be
Right.
like blackmailed into doing this stuff, but they're still
Right.
bad guys. and Harley Quinn is still a
Right.
bad guy. So they could have done Birds
Right.
of Prey as they actually are, like heroes, femme fatale heroes that are awesome and wear superhero outfits and stuff, and they would have to deal with the Suicide Squad. But build this
Yes.
thing. They
I
never
agree.
like it. It's again, it's planning. What are you guys doing? You know, plan this stuff out. So I don't know.
I agree. I agree. It's DC seems to be a bit of a hot mess. I
Yep.
mean, there are glimmers of some great stuff. I mean, and obviously Wonder Woman is fantastically successful, and
Yep.
I'm looking forward to Wonder Woman 1984. But everything is so rushed, so haphazard, and stuff doesn't match between movies. You know
Yep.
what I mean? Like timelines don't match up. Like for me, I loved Aquaman.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, the story needed some work, but like it was a solid effort.
Yeah.
But his story in the solo movie did not match up with what was happening in Justice League. Like there was like some back and forth and like forward and back jumps in time that I was like, I have no idea where this falls.
Yeah.
Like, and I only got this like clue at the end, and like it's too much for me to be like Aquaman is like super out in the limelight and he's out like with these people in this village, and then all of a sudden in Aquaman it's like no, I hate people, like brr, like I can't be with you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's too like where is this character going? What is he doing? And stop making him like flip flop around between movies because I can't follow this,
Mm-hmm.
and it's frustrating. I mean, I think that's just like one example of like the many ways that DC is not engaging in planning, and
Yep.
they really need to just stop and do it.
Yeah, they don't have that coordination, you know. I mean, if
Yeah.
Marvel does something and it doesn't seem to line up, generally you trust them that it does. You're just not
Mhm. Yeah.
remembering something or whatever. So,
Right.
but if DC does
Right.
it, it
So
brings
many.
up, yeah, it's like the whole X-Men stuff again. You know, it's like,
Yes.
I mean, that's
Yes.
really bad, but
Yeah. No, yeah, it's I think Marvel has done a great job of making like 95% of the things line up so that when that 5% does happen, you just are like, either there's some sort of explanation or I'm just not remembering something right because like look at all these other like tiny details that,
yep.
Do match up. So, yeah.
Oh, well, I saw you another good point that you put on there, because
Okay.
Birds of Prey is um, doing pretty well, both
Yeah.
critically and with an audience, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it it's you would think it'd be doing a little better anyways, given the scores. So your
Right.
question was, does the a higher audience or critic rating really matter? So I think that's interesting.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, does this sort of I think does it matter in the sense for the studio, oh, we lost money on this, but, audiences and critics responded positively, so maybe, we keep going, take a chance, do something else. Or is it going to maybe become like one of the like kind of cult favorites,
Hmm.
cult classic kind of things? Like
Right.
do we roll those dice? Um, or is it just now considered a complete failure because of cost?
Yeah.
And it's this was really highly rated, but it's going to fade into obscurity because we can't like heard anything about this movie since it opened. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
the advertising was so heavy and now it's just gone. Like there's nothing.
Yep.
And I mean, you think that at the very least the studio would try to like capitalize on these positive ratings that they've gotten from the audience and from critics, and do the follow-up trailers that are like, you know critics give Birds of Prey like 8 out of 10. It's a wild, thrilling ride. Like I've seen so many movies do that I think are worse than this movie.
Yep.
And so where is that to try to get like a second box office draw?
Yep.
I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's. I think that it's. You know, some things do really well after the fact. Like theaters matter less and less. You
Right.
know, so
Mm,
maybe
true.
they
True.
recover a lot of this in digital sales, and they put it on a streaming platform. You know, I think more and more places, I mean, that's the way it is with games a lot now. There's a lot of games that
Mm-hmm.
go under the radar because there's so many. But then you have a service like Game
Mm-hmm.
Pass that, you know, the studio or the developer doesn't necessarily make all that much money, but normally they make all their money within the first, like there's a launch window, and that's where they
Right.
basically make all their money. So after 6 months, the sales are almost nothing. So you put it on a
Right.
service and it can have a new life, and people, so maybe this film, you know, it gets released, it gets put on Netflix, or you know,
Mm-hmm.
their DC streaming service, and it has another life, and then
Right.
they see that it's worth it. But I don't know. Right now, it seems, you know, usually it seems like it doesn't work out that way. If fans like something,
Right.
if it does well, like the people that see it like it, but it doesn't make the money, it's usually done there, I think.
Right. Well, and it's disappointing that it seems to be so well received by the audiences that do go, and it's unfortunately not seeming to convince other people to go.
Yep.
You
Hmm.
know, like these high ratings aren't, translating into like recommendation, word of mouth, you know, any sort of online push
Yep.
to be like, hey, I saw it. I mean, you really should.
Yep.
So,
Yeah. And I always wonder what, you know, I'm sure it varies by fandom, but I always wonder what in like impact a fandom has on something, you know, because
oh, sure.
usually like everybody's, you know, there's people that are really invested in something. Ultimately that number is pretty small. Like if you had
Mm-hmm.
I think they're, are they making, well, say you made a Thundercats movie, you know, and
Yep.
it was very different from Thundercats, and the fans, the hardcore fans of Thundercats over the years, were not pleased with it, and they didn't go see it, but everybody else loved it. How big
Right.
of an impact is that? You know, that's the lesson I am always
Right.
worried about studios learning, is like, well, ultimately the fans don't matter that much, but
Right.
do they? Because then they're loud about it. So
Right.
I was wondering what the impact of that really is. I suppose it varies a lot, but
Yeah. Yeah, I think it does. I mean, it matters how loud a fan base can be. I think it truly does. And how much traction they can gain
yep.
by spreading a message across, the web.
I see Ashley comments here. She
Yeah.
says no one is on the DC streaming service. You know, if they were to put it on there, and I think that's true. It's
Burn.
well, it's true. It's too bad, and I think they could fix that because they've had a couple well-received shows. They've had Doom Patrol, which everybody that I've heard has watched it
Mhm.
really liked. The Harley Quinn
Yep.
animated show, people are really liking as well.
Yep.
And we like Young Justice, that's on there. I think their problem is
Okay.
promotion, and then they need to, when they, because
Yes.
they includes comic books, they need to have all the comics they have day in and day out. So when a new comic comes out every Tuesday, that it's on
Mhm.
that service. And so that's how you
Yep.
consume DC media. All the movie, you know, it's like Disney Plus. It's everything Disney. It's all of it, you know.
Yep.
Now they don't have
Yeah.
comics, which
Well,
they would be cool in there, but you know,
right. But yeah, I think Disney has the right idea because nobody's paying that much separately for Disney Plus to not get everything.
right?
I think
Mm-hmm.
that they would hear about that right away.
Yep.
So, I mean, right idea to put everything you own out there because nobody's paying, what is it, 12.99 a month or something? 6.99? I have no idea.
Disney, I think it's less. That's yeah, it's like $6. Yeah, something like that.
Okay. All right. But yeah, yeah, nobody's signing up for that because I think everybody does have streaming service fatigue a little bit.
Yep.
So nobody's signing up just for Disney to get gypped out of, whatever movie that they particularly want to see.
Yep. Yeah. No, I'm rooting for DC streaming service if they make those changes. You know, make
Yeah.
sure all the because I'm looking. I was reading X-Men stuff, newer stuff, because it's good, but it's expensive. You want to read comics these days?
Mm-hmm.
It costs a lot, so they need to
Yep.
figure something out with a better model. So Well, it's a little off topic, but we're getting
That's all
through the
right.
news. We're getting there. The our bringing up Star Wars again is important. So the final season of Clone Wars started yesterday, uh, the
Okay.
21st, I believe, is when it was. And you watched the Clone Wars, Star Wars Clone Wars at all?
I have not. No.
I've seen select
No.
episodes.
Okay. What do you think about it?
I initially I was never a fan of the art style. I kind of was what
Mm-hmm.
threw me off from it for a while, and then when it was
Sure.
airing, we didn't have whatever channel it was on, Disney or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then to buy it, they were really expensive. So then
Mm-hmm.
years passed, and they were, and then they canceled it and all that stuff. So I basically later on, when it became available on streaming services, I went and watched certain
Okay.
episodes that I had heard about or really wanted to see. Um, but I'm excited they're making this final season, wrapping things up. There were a lot of loose ends, I guess, from before, so they get to
Okay.
kind of see those through now.
Sure.
Ahsoka Tano, fan favorite, is going to be a big part of it again. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I have to be honest. There was a part of me that was intrigued by the idea of Clone Wars,
Mm-hmm.
but could not get past the fact that Attack of the Clones is one of my least favorite Star Wars movies
Oh,
ever.
okay.
So, just like I don't know. I don't know if it was just like name association that
But
I just was
I
like
mean,
clones. Ah, God. What if Hayden Christensen's in it?
but the
Ugh.
dialogue in Attack
So,
of the Clones is top notch. I'm not sure. I mean, the lines, but sand is so
yeah, I hate
coarse.
sand.
Yeah,
I love everybody knows this.
everybody
Everybody is
knows
like,
that.
"Oh, are you talking about terrible dialogue? Do you want to talk about the sand and the smooth skin scene?" Because yeah,
Well, and see,
yeah,
this is
it's
why
awful.
I'm okay with those movies now because the stories are still solid. They just needed someone
Mm-hmm.
that didn't write dialogue at like eighth grade level to do to do this. Someone to go over this script that was willing
Right.
to say no to George Lucas. But that's the thing, being like him doing it all himself and independent or whatever, no one can say no to him, and so he gets his vision on screen, whatever.
I was gonna say, otherwise, if they do say no, they're probably gone. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, anybody who might have was probably not involved in this production
I'm
in the end.
sure it's a quote somewhere, but you know, limitation is the defining matter of art. Like you have a vision, you have a dream or whatever, but then
Mhm.
where your boundaries are, whether they're monetary or just like technology, whatever those limits are,
Mhm.
that's what ends up create. That's a important part of your art as well, and that's what made the
Mhm.
original Star Wars trilogy. Is George Lucas's vision was hampered. It wasn't everything he
Right.
could dream up, you know, and it made something special because of it. So
Yeah, I mean it's a cautionary tale of having free reign,
yeah,
like ultimate free reign.
yeah,
Because yeah, I think so many well, and I think it's a cautionary tale of delegation too. I mean, you just can't do everything. Something is going to suffer.
yeah.
Unless you're doing this thing over like years and years and years and you have time to individually pay attention to every single aspect of the art that you're creating, which of course nobody ever has.
Uh,
But
Game of Thrones, George R. R. Martin with his
uh
books, right?
well, yes, that is a little bit different though, because that's one medium.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like in the sense of like movies have to have like several mediums
right.
happening at once.
Yeah, a lot of
So
crafts.
you have to pay attention to many different aspects of production.
Yep,
Like writing is writing,
yep.
you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, so I never to circle back, I never watched Clone Wars just because of traumatic associations, but
Okay. Well, they added
I
lots.
could go back and try it.
Yeah, I mean, they added a lot to the lore of Star Wars. It's canon, and there's a
Right.
lot of interesting things. You know, Count Dooku is pretty darn cool in that. They add a lot of, you know, it's the same as the follow up then Star Wars Rebels, which I did see all of. They add a lot to what is official Star Wars, and it's George Lucas's protege that's responsible for these shows. So
Hmm.
it's the closest thing we get to what he would um, do for this stuff. So, but with I would argue a little more deft hand. So
Well, I think it's easier um, for somebody like a protege to be more objective about something because it is hard when you've created something to kill your babies
yeah,
is the
hmm
popular saying. Like you have an idea and you don't want to let it go even though everybody's like, no, this isn't really that great, and you're like, but it's mine, I
yep,
created it, how can I. And people are like, no, you just got to do it.
yep.
So it's a lot easier for somebody who it's not his original idea to be like, yeah, I can kill this.
That's why a lot of the shows I think turn out or can have the potential to, like Game of Thrones for so long. You have the you know the gift of foresight, you know, so
Hmm.
you can see what happened and be like, well, this makes a little more sense this way. We would rather do this, you know. And same with Walking
Hmm.
Dead for a while, you know. I think that the
Yes.
creator got to fine tune the things that he kind of, well, it really didn't pan out the way I wanted originally, you
Mhm.
know, so we can adjust that here
Yep.
and make it more satisfying. Because you see things and connections and stuff that you didn't even imagine as you wrote it, you know.
Yes, absolutely.
So
And when it becomes a collaborative process like that, it's easier for you to like get that sort of input that says like somebody this way and you're like, whoa, I never would have thought of that. Like, yeah, of course we could, retool this a little bit.
that was one of
So,
my favorite things to do in college was they would, you know, everybody would
mm,
have, you'd have a small group and everybody would get a card. One would say location, one would say time, one would say character, one would say, you know, problem, whatever the different categories were, and everybody would each write down that thing. Then you show everybody your card and you build a
okay.
story based upon those elements. You know, so you write down the
Ooh,
basic
that's
story elements.
fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I mean, you could build a D&D campaign that way, or just a general story, and you're getting,
Yeah,
and then you're like, you know, obviously not everything's gonna match, so you got to make it match together, and I think that's fun
right.
to do. So
Absolutely. Yeah, we should do something like that sometime.
yeah,
That'd
it'd
be
be
fun.
cool. We should have a D&D episode sometime where we kind of talk about some of
Okay.
that a little bit. I can talk about my experience with that, and then go into, yeah, maybe a little story creation or something. So
Definitely. It's a plan.
oh, okay, okay. News. We're still there. We're still going through.
I know. I know.
Witcher season 2 has begun production.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I'm excited.
Nobody's surprised.
Yeah, no, no one's surprised. They unveiled some cast members. They look good for the
I
characters
saw
that
that.
I'm familiar with.
Hmm.
Torbjorn from wait, no, so is that his name?
Torment.
Tormund. Torbjorn is a Overwatch character. Oh yeah, Tormund. He is
Yes.
he's cast in this as a character I'm unfamiliar with. But I'm
Yes.
excited. So
I
so
love his energy, so I'm excited to see what he
yes,
brings.
yeah. I don't have much else there. Just that I'm glad they're going on this and seeing some new cast
Yeah,
members.
I think it was pretty foregone. Once like the first sort of viewing numbers came out of Netflix that were,
Yes.
so high, I think it was like, yeah, we're doing this. So I'm glad. I'm glad. I haven't finished watching season one yet.
Okay.
But I've enjoyed what I have watched, so
Nice.
I'm excited to go forward with season two.
On the other end of the spectrum, in terms of like
Hmm.
intensity, of Animal Crossing. Animal Crossing. Nintendo had a
So intense.
yeah, and Nintendo had a Nintendo Direct all about the new Animal Crossing the other day. Comes out March 20th, and it's a good video to watch if you're interested. Animal Crossing
Okay.
for the GameCube, the original one. I had quite a bit of fun
Oh,
with.
I love GameCube.
Yeah, it's a fun
You
little
know, that's
box.
nostalgia for me.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I suppose you
That's my
played.
Res Evil.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you have a purple or a black one?
That's purple.
Purple. Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. But it was fun. It was for me. It was a unique game where I mean, for the first time that you wouldn't play it in a couple days, and you come back and there'd be little cockroaches that would scurry in your place or cobwebs around. So it was that real time thing
Sure.
was kind of fun. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I you can connect your if you play the DS games, you can connect some stuff from that. They're gonna have seasonal events,
Mm-hmm.
which will be fun. My wife and I will each get a copy, so we'll visit each other's islands, and you can go
Sure.
adventure together or whatever. So I hope it's good. Should get a Switch,
Yeah, I
Andrea.
feel like I feel like seasonal events is kind of like the new thing to keep people interested in games.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like just from my own like playing Pokemon Go and Harry Potter.
Oh yeah.
Um, like having these sort of seasonal events to like generate interest all the time and like release something new or have something exciting going on so that people get re-engaged. I think that's a
Yeah.
smart idea, and I think it's going to travel well across multiple games and platforms.
Yep. Yep. So I guess I won't go on about that, but you've got some other shows that are coming out this week.
It's not a whole lot. It's pretty light this week. I just wanted to briefly note that on HBO Go, John Oliver season 7 came out, which was funny because it actually kicked off with an episode all about healthcare, which
Mm.
is literally the field that I work in.
Mm.
So like everything he pointed out, I'd be like, I studied that. Oh, I know this. Oh my God, he's like name dropping like Urban Institute. Like we just did a report with them.
Sure.
So it was kind of a fun episode for me because like a lot of the times, he goes in these deep dives about topics that, you either don't know anything about, don't know much about, or like it's just something new that he's done.
Yep.
And so this was like the first one that I've ever looked at and been like, I know everything he's saying right now. Like I study these numbers. Like it was very cool. So
I
that
froze
was just
again,
like a fun
so
fun
I'll
episode
be
for me. Sure. Get
right
out of
back
here.
again. Why,
You didn't really
Andrea?
freeze. You didn't really freeze, did you, John? You just didn't want to hear me talk about healthcare anymore.
No, it's fine. I
No.
I would have a bone to pick with about John Oliver, but I would save that for another podcast.
Yeah, I didn't really want to get into like politics per se. I just thought it was really fun that like it was finally
Yeah.
a deep dive on
Yeah.
something that I actually just knew about and just
Right.
happened to be something that, I do every day for work. So
No,
that
I
was just
love
kind
that. I
of
listen to
a fun
listen
moment for me.
to the news or something, and all of a sudden, yeah, they talk about something you're really interested in or something you're intricately aware of. Then that's
Right.
fun to, yeah.
Right.
I usually end up doing that with like tech things, the news or some
Right,
commentary
yeah.
talking about tech things, and I'll be like sitting there, that's not right or whatever.
Exactly. It's fun. Yeah, like when he would like drop a figure, I'd be like, "Yep, I read that report." I'd like turn to Chris and be like, actually this is like pretty nuanced, and like this organization says one thing and like this report is
Sure.
actually, based on different data than you think it is. And it was just like finally my turn to like be very knowledgeable about something because usually Chris is the one who's like, I read this thing.
Sure.
And that's not right. So it was finally my turn. Finally I rise up. So other things that came out this week, Hunters on Amazon
yeah.
Prime Video, the new Al Pacino led cast about Nazi hunting in America, which intriguing premise. Like Al Pacino is a rock solid actor, so I'd be willing to give it a couple episodes, see where that goes.
Sure.
See how they make it different and interesting.
Okay.
Okay, so we're gonna jump back to movies just for a brief second. Not a whole lot is coming out this week, but I wanted to briefly mention Call of the Wild with Harrison Ford is coming out this week,
Okay.
or I should say came out this week.
Yep.
And I wanted to mention it for a few different reasons. One, because it's one of my favorite books ever. Like
Oh,
I love it.
okay.
So I was very nervous about like how this was going to play out. It seems to be received well so far. Like it's got a high rating, even if it's not like performing spectacularly at the box office. But it's not really that kind of movie. It's not designed to be like the hugest box office draw. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean? Like it feels like something that you could watch very comfortably at home. So I don't know that people feel that sense of urgency to watch it in a theater. But I wanted to sort of swing it back around to the whole like question of CGI
Hmm.
because the main character is Buck, this dog, and it like the whole movie is like about his adventures. He's born and bred on this like cushy California farm, and he has this really great life, and then all of a sudden he's kidnapped and sold into this like dog fighting ring up in Alaska. So like
Hmm.
his whole life switches from like really cush easy to like holy shit, I'm in wildly unfamiliar, unforgiving land, sold into this dog fighting ring and I have to survive. Like how do I do this?
Okay.
So it's a very interesting story, but of course the main character being a dog, and this dog is not like a normal breed of dog. It's like Jack London describes him in a plethora of different ways, but he's a mix. He's huge. Like wildly larger than the normal average dog. And he's not anything that could be easily just be like, okay, here we have this dog that's going to match up. Let's,
Hmm.
you know, make creative shots or shoot interesting angles so that he just looks normal or larger than normal. So they had to do CGI for this dog.
Okay.
And from everything I've watched so far, it looks terrible. I hate it. It's so cartoony.
Hmm.
And it's the eyes. Like you cannot make
Okay.
realistic CGI eyes. Do you know what I mean? Like they
I think
automatically look
I
cartoony.
think you can. I just think maybe they didn't then.
Ah,
I don't know. I think
I don't know. I like because that seems to be the biggest criticism out of this movie is like the
okay.
story's done well, Harrison Ford does well, like everything makes sense. It's just that the CGI looks really fakey, and it
Hmm.
does. Like I watched the
I wonder
extended
who did it.
trailer.
I wonder who did the
I don't
CGI.
know. I don't know who did, but there a lot of critics are saying like this movie was just made too soon because
Okay.
of this problem with CGI. Like CGI has obviously made like huge leaps and bounds in what it can realistically do, but this was just not a movie I thought needed to be made right now.
Yeah.
And I have such strong feelings about it because I love it so much. Like it's one of my favorite books. But yeah, like everything from I think like the eyes look very cartoony, especially like when they're trying to have Buck make expressions, expressive faces. It looks really fakey. And then even to he's supposed to like do these sort of like wildly unrealistic things because he's such like a strong large dog that he makes these like super leaps and jumps, and
Right.
they just look like you dropped a cartoon character in there,
Okay.
and it's just really off-putting.
I
So
I see that in just this movie web article talking about how it's way
sure.
more toned down and family friendly than the source material, more politically correct.
Yeah.
Um, and I won't say why
Oh,
for
politically correct was
spoilers.
interesting.
Yeah.
That's an interesting comment. I mean, I figure they would have to tone it down because they do. Jack London does spend quite a bit of time like describing Buck in dogfighting rings. So
Hmm.
I figured it would have that part would definitely have to be toned down
So
because that's a huge part of it.
it's a production of 3D Arts Entertainment and 20th Century Fox Animation.
Oh,
So
okay.
I don't know much about that. I wonder if they're kind of trying to do their own in-house thing a little more,
Sure.
as opposed to going to some of the known known places for that. I froze again. That's a good look right there.
You did. Definitely.
I tell you,
There you are.
I'm gonna have to get like another camera or something like that. Um, so for the people interested, are like, why is your thing keep freezing? I have a camera. So some cameras let you run, plug into an external power and run it that way. And that's what I need. Mine doesn't let me do that. You just run it off a battery. Well, I don't want to sit and run it off a battery and then potentially run out of batteries. So you buy a fake battery. I forget what they're called, and plug it in. But the cameras don't like them because they know they're not real batteries often. Sometimes they won't work and whatever. So I don't know. It's something because it's not this official thing. I don't know. It seems so random. It's not like a timed thing. It just, just does it. So I apologize for that.
You should.
I know. Yeah.
But anyway, I'll wrap this up. But I had to say something about it because I don't know why studios feel the need to do these kinds of things because it feels too soon.
Yep.
Like this for me was like particularly passionate like opinion of mine just because I love that book so much and I guess maybe I'm like the fan base of one making my opinions heard but yeah I don't when you need to do something like this extensive where you have to create like a main character like this and put it throughout the whole movie like you can't dodge it, you can't sidestep it, it's not like, oh, this is only going to be a few frames, like we can make this work. It's the focus of the entire movie. Just wait. Or
don't, I mean, maybe it's the case, don't cheap out. Spend all your money on Harrison Ford, and then you don't have any left to, like, send it to the pros for your animation. I mean, they talk about that in Game of Thrones all the time, like, where is Wolf? Where are the dogs? Because the dire wolves, because they cost a lot of money every time they're on screen. Exactly. Dragons too, like those are tentpole moments that are important, but they save budget for those, because you can spare no expense on them if you're going to do these things that are really out there and are demanding. So it's maybe a thing of like, let's cast someone that's a little newer and not try to like just draw everybody in with Harrison Ford. And then, let's make sure our CGI team, our, digital effects team is up to snuff. Or we I know, I think before, companies like Wetaworks that did Lord of the Rings and stuff, they would, they'll sit, they'll be assist different companies, together, different ones will work on different parts of it and they'll, learn from each other and whatever. But
yeah, I suppose you bring up a good point with Game of Thrones. Obviously, they had to do quite a bit of creative work to create dire wolves, and they did that very realistically. Yeah. So maybe it's not quite out of the realm that they could have done this for this movie as well, but they just didn't.
Yep.
And I think the movie suffers because that's what everybody's focusing on now. It's large, it's glaring, you can't ignore it because again, it's the entire focus of the movie because this is the main character.
And a lot of that stuff, I think they could green screen the animals, do more real stuff of green screening the animals and then putting them into a scene and making them larger. I mean, I don't know what all techniques they used for the Lion King live action, but those look pretty convincing,
Agreed.
And I know those are normal size, but it's with all kinds of animals. They're clearly not just there. So, like, I think the magic is possible. They just didn't put the money into it,
Right. So that to me was very disappointing, and I will not be going to see it, but I would have liked to because it's one of my favorite books.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, on topic of movies yet, we both watched a movie this week, the same one. That's nice.
Yes.
So this is...
we did. So we can finally get a good debate going on the same topic here. And now my drink choice will finally make sense. Crown Royal.
Yep.
Because we both watched Timothée Chalamet in The King on Netflix.
Yeah. Which was really interesting because I was just going through Netflix and I thought, oh yeah, I remember people raving about Robert Pattinson's French accent in this movie and how that steals every scene. So I'm like, all right, let's give that a go. And then you said you were you had put that on your list, or I forget what was the. So you were looking in that movie
Yeah.
before too.
Yeah, so I'd added it to my Netflix list because I'm a huge Shakespeare nerd, and The King is loosely based on Shakespeare's Henry IV parts 1 and 2, but mostly Henry V.
Okay.
So, which was made particularly famous a number of years ago. Henry V was by Kenneth Branagh. Kenneth Branagh had done a series of Shakespeare movies. He'd done Hamlet, Much Ado About Nothing, but Henry V was kind of his first shot at it, and he proved himself more than adequate for the task. I think that was one of his like breakout moments
Stand
as
out.
a serious actor. Yeah. So then they sort of like gave him reign to
But
move on to
Gilbert
Hamlet
Lockhart.
and Much Ado. I know.
That's the breakout.
He. Aw,
So if
that
people
would,
go to our website that Andrea lovingly put together, my picture on
Yeah.
there by my bio is me as Gilderoy Lockhart. So that's my
yes,
connection to Kenneth there.
absolutely, absolutely. My picture is very different. My picture connects to nothing. So we'll stick with yours. Go only check out John's.
Okay. Well, would you having the background more, which I did not.
Yes.
What'd you think? What'd you come away with?
It's I think it's a mix for me. It's a solid movie, but I don't think I would put it in one of my great categories.
Okay.
I think it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I think Timothée Chalamet is a solid actor, but his performance is solid, not inspiring.
Okay.
You know, I don't think that there was any moment where I was like, ooh, like this is terrible character choice, or you know, like I don't know what you're doing here. Everything was fine, and I think maybe Chalamet suffered a bit from the fact that this is a lot of story to cram into 2.5 hours.
Sure. Yeah.
And I think this could have easily been a mini series.
Okay.
Yeah. To sort of show more of the transition between Henry pre-crown and post.
Sure.
Because we get that shift very quickly.
Yep.
And there's no like transitional like growing into the crown period. It's just like pre-crown, I hate it, I don't want it, you know, I've never sought this out, to like wham, I've got it.
Yep.
And now I'm very serious, and now I have to go to war with France.
Sure.
So there's no time for him to settle, and no time for him to transition from I don't want this to hey, I'm fully committed.
Yep.
And I thought that was really apparent in one of the early battle scenes where he is kneeling down and praying. He's got like the rosary in his hand and he's praying. And I was like, wow, that's a character switch. Like he is so committed and serious and pious, and you know, like I want to do everything very responsibly, and you know, I believe wholeheartedly in my cause so much that I'm going to pray for it. And I had a hard time reconciling that with the sort of like playful, drunken, you know, shirking of responsibility Henry that we are first introduced to.
Yep.
So
I can see that.
Yeah. So like I said, I thought Chalamet did a solid job, but I think he was hampered in some aspects by the quick moving of the story.
Sure. Yeah, so. I was I haven't seen a lot of historical sort of medieval movies in a while. The last one that really stands out to me is Kingdom of Heaven. And
oh yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, I remember seeing that in the theater.
I had to see it.
Okay. Liam Neeson was in it. I had to see it. Jeremy Irons.
Hey, we can each have our crushes.
Yeah.
At least we don't have to fight over them.
Liam Neeson was just on Watch What Happens Live on Bravo the other night.
Oh, shut up.
It was a little awkward.
Oh my God, I need to watch that.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
He is like one of the last people I would expect to be on that.
Yeah.
Truly.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I need to go see that.
But
anyway, sorry.
But no, so Kingdom of Heaven had a good, like, I don't know, there was a mood to it. that this movie didn't replicate, but it worked for me. Is what I'm looking for in this kind of film. I thought it was quite beautiful, and
Mm-hmm.
I was struck by the what I thought were realistic fight scenes. Um,
Yes.
a
Yes.
lot of
I
times,
wholeheartedly agree with you there.
yeah, it's like we're in armor that's heavy. We can barely see. We get tired, and it ends up just being kind of a wrestle in the mud. It's dirty. It's not pretty. You're not fencing. You're not doing flips. I
Mm-hmm.
froze again.
You did.
Hold on. Oh my
Hey, you. Hey,
god.
stranger.
Yeah. Um, and so I appreciate that, and I thought maybe it was just
Yeah.
the beginning, but they did that more than I'd say it was pretty consistent in the film. Um, I liked
Yeah.
the music. Go ahead.
So just to say one final thing about the battles, I also appreciated that sort of realism.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that I felt that's a pretty accurate portrayal of what those many battles at that historical time must have been like. It reminded me very much of Battle of the Bastards, to
Yep.
bring it back to Game of Thrones.
Yep.
That same sort of like crush of bodies, just like grappling for anything, anyone. I mean, who's who in that moment. You're just sort of like indiscriminately like trying to find an enemy to kill, and sometimes maybe you ended up killing your
Yep.
friends or allies without
Yep.
knowing it, but it was just like mad scramble for survival. um so it's sort of a lot of humanity boiled down to some very basic,
Yep.
you know survival principles.
And
um
I
so that's an interesting look
yeah.
at that sort of situation.
Yeah, it's something that's often neglected in a historical film. They want to
Right.
fantasize it a little more. And
Hmm.
obviously we fantasize all of it a little bit, but
Right.
um,
Right. No, that aspect is I thought quite real. I was thinking about like sort of like the pre-battle preparations that a lot of the soldiers were making. It was all just like very mundane, but like very terrifying in a, we are probably all going to go die, and like we're all waiting for this.
yep,
But a lot of it is just like, well, gotta go sharpen my sword, gotta go eat
yep,
some food, gotta, you know, it's the mundane actions that aren't often shown in the moments of glory.
yep.
So I appreciated that.
Well, and that's what the film drove home for me. And every once there's different things that do this, but it just reminded me of like that this has been, to me, the film shows well how terrible of an existence most of humanity has ever had. Like most of humanity has literally, they've not had the chance to sit and wonder what they should do with their lives or what they'd like to do. It's just literally, I have kings and rulers and people that are out doing petty things that get offended by one thing or another. A ring of people that are privileged and put in power by blood, by religion, and they get to call the shots. And the rest of
Hmm.
humanity, the people, women are pumped full of babies. Those babies, the sons, are sent off as children to war to die, and those women just have more babies to send into more wars to die. Like it's just
Hmm.
that's the human existence for for like a millennia. Like that's what it's been.
Yep.
And this film did it well. Like you got these people that are, the king is the new king is upset. He doesn't want to do it. He wants to do something else. It's like, uh, you know, you you have this power and you get in this system, this incredibly corrupt system that he tries to do something different. He tries to do something better. And he's just
Hmm.
surrounded by people that are out for themselves, for power, and they don't care whose
Hmm.
lives they throw away for it. And so he
Yeah.
ends up getting sucked into this unwittingly and being just the same as the rest, you know?
Yep.
And I liked the humanity that Sir John brought. Is an important character, I thought, in the film. And
Absolutely.
also
Well, yeah,
then,
he's an important character in the Henriade plays as well.
Okay.
Falstaff is often thought of as like the true hero of the Henry plays.
Nice. Yeah. And then also
So yeah, so I appreciated Joel Edgerton's take on it because I thought it was well
yeah,
done.
yeah, I dug it. He was the common man that was, you know, able to keep perspective on things that everybody else didn't have.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a realistic look at the way nobility and the church and stuff would act and the way things would go. And yeah, I liked that a lot. And Robert Pattinson. I liked Robert Pattinson.
Yeah, I thought along similar lines, I think. I thought that, you know, Henry had a group of pretty terrible advisors. Who sort of conned him into a response and conned him into war with France. I thought he gave it up a little quickly. But again, I think that's
movie,
one of the things that stuff. Right, you don't have a lot of time to show this. So again, you know, here's where I would have liked to maybe see a mini series so we could take some time and have it not feel like, damn it, Henry, like grow a backbone, like
yeah.
you know, keep resisting. He just sent you a bowl, it's fine.
Yep.
So, but it does show the importance of, I think, you know, when you do have power, getting the right people to be advisors, because obviously like these people were literally just out for themselves. And I think there's an interesting tension between having advisors who are friends to you and friends also to the nation, because not everything that's good for Henry is going to be good for England.
Right.
And I think that Falstaff does a nice job of being like, yeah, sometimes I'm going to be here for you as your friend, but sometimes like I'm going to check you because this isn't what England needs, or this isn't what the people of England need. Like, you know, sometimes I'm going to help you grow as a person, and sometimes like you're going to have to be sacrificed metaphorically for the good of the nation that you rule, because it's not all about you.
Yep.
And I think that's a good reminder of like the leader of any nation, whether they be king or president or, you know, whatever, MP, whatever they are, they need people who are looking out for them, but they need people who are also looking out for the nation, because they are not the nation.
Well, that's part of what
they're symbolic of the nation, but they are not always, because obviously, you know, Henry gets baited into this war that probably isn't great for the people of England, even if it does like unite them behind a common cause. Like the actual cost of the war is not going to be great for the nation. So
and it, you know, it it was, I guess, naive of me, but I hadn't thought of that in the terms of kings and queens. You know, I think now of leaders or whatever, you know, like being influenced or having a large, you know, having people that are for them or against them that are in there. Like I can see that in like kind of a democratic system where people, but I hadn't thought of that as a struggle for kings and queens. I think with a monarch, oh, you can do whatever you want, you know. So, but so I appreciated the political intrigue and the realistic way they did that. And
absolutely,
I thought it was good. And it wasn't too long. I don't remember how long it was, but sometimes things are too long.
2.5.
It felt like it went quickly.
Yeah, it does move nicely. It's just, I think overall could have been, and I hate to be repetitive, but a miniseries.
Yeah. Sure, a lot of things could have been. I mean, that's the way a lot of stuff is now. We're spoiled with that, you know, because that's really a great way to tell a story. You know, that was always the complaint with books adapted to film is, man, you can't have the detail, the minutia. Now, now you can.
Well, and I mean, to be fair, Shakespeare is long. His plays are books.
Yep.
You know, they're just, they need the time and they need the attention. And they need to be fleshed out.
Yep.
So it was tough for me a little bit in the sense of coming at it from knowing Shakespeare's work, because it I knew when things were missed. And sometimes it didn't matter, but sometimes I felt it did. But the other part was it was tough to watch this sort of adaptation that dips into Shakespeare's work but doesn't fully commit to it.
Right.
Um, you know, because it's set in the same time period, it's very hard for me to not be like, can you just do Shakespeare if you're going to do Shakespeare, please?
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
like sometimes when you have adaptations like uh things where, 10 Things I Hate About You is based on The Taming of the Shrew.
Mm.
That to me is you've taken the source material and you've transported it completely, so I don't need you to be exactly faithful. When you're sort of like stepping back and going in this time period, it's really tough for me to divorce, you know, the adaptation from the source material. So sometimes I felt really frustrated by the fact that I kept looking for things to happen that were altered or changed or missed
Yep.
because, you know, it's not exactly Henry. It's not
So
exactly one of the Henry plays.
we're um, going along. This is getting to the end of our topic
Yeah, we
here.
are.
But what? So ultimately, with all the stuff to watch these days, lots of
Mhm.
choices. Would you recommend people watch this or not?
I would. I would recommend that they watch it. I think there are enough well done elements to balance out any issues. I think not a lot of people like me are Shakespeare nerds.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think that they'll particularly feel the loss of things that maybe I did. And if it intrigues people to go back to the source material, all
Yeah.
the better, because I think
Right.
that's brilliant work. And so anything that I think drives people to that is great. I do think Chalamet does a very solid job. Um, and I think Edgerton really steals the movie. His Falstaff is just perfect. I did also want to quickly mention I thought Lily Rose Depp did a great job as Catherine.
Right at the end there.
She's yes,
Yep.
which I mean is pretty accurate to the source material since Catherine's not like a huge part of Henry V. Um, she's in it a bit more, but for the sake of the movie, I think she only needed to be here.
Great way to end the film. It was a good
Yes.
final couple sequences. I think that was
Yep.
is effective. And
Well, and I think she does a great job for taking over for Falstaff, like that sort of
yeah.
role in Henry's life that
Yep.
he needs. That sort of like, I'm just going to tell you some straight up stuff and take it or not, but
Yep.
it's something to consider.
Yeah, I would say if a person's into the kind of a historical medieval thing, and we're interested in Kingdom of Heaven at all, you should definitely give it a look. For me, if nothing else, for how thankful it makes me to be alive today. Um,
Mm-hmm.
it reminds you of how bad things were for so long, and
I agree.
so and on top of that, I just plain enjoyed it regardless. So yeah.
Yeah, it's beautifully shot.
Yeah, yeah. It ticks the boxes.
Yes.
So I guess we should wrap it up there. Um,
Yeah.
I've covered all our stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks for anyone that's stuck with us here. Don't know what will be
Yeah.
going on next week, but I'm sure there'll be more things in the news, more to talk about than we can fit into our the time we allot for this. So
Absolutely. And we'll be back doing another live in person episode, so that'll
that's
be
right,
fun.
in person next week.
Reunion.
So we'll see what we have for technical difficulties then. Oh, exciting! Yeah.
Right.
So,
All right.
all right.
Well, good to talk to you, John.
Yep. Talk to you later. Bye, everybody.
Bye.